You may be already back in your office or making plans to return, but what about your member of Congress? A surprising number of lawmakers are still invoking an emergency COVID policy to vote remotely in the House, an option not available in the Senate. But now critics say a surprising number of lawmakers are skipping town, voting by proxy, and in some cases attending other in-person events. Our senior Washington reporter, Devin Dwyer, went looking for answers on Capitol Hill.
As major votes are cast,
the Build Back Better bill is passed.
Dozens of members of Congress are literally phoning it in.
As the member designated by Mr. Swalwell, I inform the House that Mr. Swalwell will vote aye.
Doing their jobs by proxy vote, citing an ongoing public health emergency, even as COVID-19 recedes.
They don't want to come in unless they are vaccinated and unless others are vaccinated.
343 members of the House, Democrats and Republicans, have filed a notice to vote remotely at least once this year, telling the House clerk they're unable to physically attend proceedings because of the pandemic.
Good paying green jobs.
At Friday's historic vote on the $1.75 trillion Build Back Better plan, 98 lawmakers who voted didn't show up in person.
Figuring out how to prevent abuse of the practice while also making it available for people who need it it's a real challenge.
Enforcement is by honor system, and critics say many absences have nothing to do with the pandemic, instead are matters of politics and convenience.
Graph the number of proxies and look how they increase exponentially on Fridays, right?
Nearly all House Republicans opposed proxy voting when it began last year, but some have since taken advantage.
And I will stand up for your God-given rights every single day.
Congresswoman Lauren Boebert of Colorado among 13 Republicans who voted remotely while attending a political conference.
Why have you done it?
You gonna get in the car with me or what?
I believe that
Republican Congressman Madison Cawthorn of North Carolina was also there. He's voted by proxy more than a dozen times this year.
I informed the House that Mr. Cawthorn will vote no.
Despite blasting Democrats who've used remote voting as cowards for not showing up.
I don't know all interviews. But you voted proxy many times after you said it was a bad idea. Again, I don't do all interviews.
hypocritical that so many of your colleagues on your side have used it after criticizing it?
Look, I think once you make the rules, people follow the rules.
Rule or not, top Republicans say proxy voting is unconstitutional. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy even asking the Supreme Court to strike it down.
I think people should be here to work, to have to be paid. When you proxy vote, you're not here to debate the bill. You're not in committee.
You condemned it early on.
Yeah, it's wrong.
Why are so many Republicans participating in proxy voting still?
I think people should, well, if you look at how many Democrats, there's Democrats who have never been back to work.
That's not true, according to the House clerk, but Democrats have used the practice too.
I didn't want to expose my members.
Sometimes for COVID-19, sometimes for reasons that are less clear.
They've never offered to buy my house. I was going to say.
Democratic Congressman Ron Kind of Wisconsin voted remotely on 7 bills in June while President Biden was visiting his state.
It's a good thing when you have legitimate reasons to be away. I have 2 young girls. There are times when I have because I used it when my daughter was born.
Others have used remote voting while caring for a sick or dying parent or when flight delays have kept them stranded, but each time citing COVID for being unable to attend.
What if it's a good reason, like the birth of a child or one of your Republican colleagues had eye surgery?
My wife had our first child 16 months ago. I missed votes. That's how it was. You miss votes for legitimate reasons. But proxy voting basically gets us closer to a non-essential Congress, or a Congress that's just, zooming into work every day.
It's a member designated by Mr. Trone of Maryland.
Congressman Don Beyer of Virginia, who regularly casts votes for absent Democratic colleagues, says it's about time everyone gets back to debating and voting in person.
The original purpose was just for people who either where it just wasn't safe to fly or they had some pre-existing condition, including being too old. Now, when people start going to conferences or something, that's a little different.
Rocket launches?
Yeah.
Florida Democrats Charlie Crist and Darren Soto voted by proxy the same day as a planned SpaceX launch, but told the House clerk they couldn't vote in person because of the pandemic.
Should voters be frustrated, irritated if they find out their member has been
voting remotely while fundraising, while on a boat in Florida.
That's something they should be worried about, but I don't think they should automatically assume that just because their member has been voting by proxy, their member hasn't been working.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is extending proxy voting through the end of the year. Her office telling ABC News while some have misused proxy voting for non-pandemic reasons, it remains a vital protection for the health of members who may be immunocompromised or be particularly at risk for life-threatening complications from COVID.
All across the country, people are getting back to work. Schools are opening up again. Congress ought to be working.
An option to vote remotely in Congress still controversial and unprecedented.
Figuring out how to protect the process for people who genuinely need it, and while also preventing abuse, is going to be a real challenge for an extremely polarized and partisan House of Representatives going forward.
As Americans return to work and expect their representatives to do the same. For ABC News, I'm Devin Dwyer on Capitol Hill.
Lots of contradictions from some there. Our thanks to Devin for that.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.